As always, there's a hidden plot on the eve of the finals, and this time it surrounds guess who but Brodie Grundy. He's meeting with Port Adelaide late last week, both coaches and senior leaders, Caro, and we hear potentially one other club, maybe the Swans and potentially another as well. How does this look to you on the eve of the finals? Is it fair and reasonable? And has your opinion changed since you famously took home the Cats for doing similar, ironically, to Port back in the day?
A completely different set of circumstances. Port Adelaide, when that happened, were a club on their knees. They had no money. They were in political disarray, on-field disarray. You could not say that about the Melbourne Football Club. Travis Boak was a much-needed favourite son. Brodie Grundy is a second ruckman who they don't want as a ruckman, and it's been struggling to even play in the twos. So you've changed your mind? You think it's fair enough now? Completely different situation.
In a modern time?
The look of preying on a club was what I didn't like, and I will stand by that. But I completely understand what Port were doing, and I think Rosie and Butters were in Melbourne anyway because of the All-Australian Awards, and Ken Hinkley flew in. Absolutely fine with me.
What about from the Grundy camp, though, as well, and him meeting with a rival club that they may play in the finals at some stage? Port Adelaide may play Melbourne. Why wouldn't he leave that to his management? Do you think he's lost faith in his management group and he's taken matters into his own hands after perhaps being ill-advised last year?
I think that Brodie Grundy is very unhappy with what was delivered to him and promised to him at Melbourne, promised and then not delivered. I think his management made a poor decision to send him to Melbourne, but you've got to wear your own decisions. He's a grown man and he made the decision as well. He probably, I mean, Craig, you've made a case for, I think only two other clubs were probably a worse fit for Brodie Grundy than Melbourne at the time, but yeah, I think it's absolutely fine. And
they've got a decent hand, Melbourne, in all of this. They might improve just by babysitting for a year their position anyway, and we'll come to that in a sec. Lots of commentary on this. Jeremy Howe weighed in, his former teammate and someone who's gone between the two clubs himself. He said absolutely he needs to find a home where he's valued. I feel like when the trade went through, and I know they spoke about the ruck combo or playing ruck forward, you ask anyone here, he was never going to be a forward, never, ever. Lordo, what's your thoughts on a senior leader at Collingwood commenting on that situation?
My take is normally I'd say it's strange, Hutchie, but they're good mates, and I think everyone just knows Brodie's gone. So it's like they're talking about a player. Like you wouldn't probably delve into it. You're playing the opposition this week. Normally you'd steer clear of it, but I think everyone just knows Brodie's situation. He's out the door. He's got 1 foot out the door, and the only way he plays again is if Max gets injured.
And if Max did get injured, he's suddenly the most important player in the final series.
Yeah.
For Melbourne, really.
And I asked Christian Salem tonight on 3AW about what's it like having one of your teammates that's turning up to train, yet he's been meeting with other clubs, and Christian said he's training hard. We wouldn't know about that.
Just Hutchie, just the way that Jeremy Howe was describing him, Collingwood need exactly what he was. Now, you were big on him taking a pay cut. Now, the reason he's not at Collingwood
is
he's only financial, Caro. That's the only reason.
He made a poor decision, and that's why he's taking ownership of his life now.
Because Cameron's going no good, and Jeremy Howe's saying, well, he's an extra midfielder who's a dominant ruck, which is exactly what Collingwood need. The only reason he's not there is because of the money he was on.
And just a few wild thoughts on the deal construct before in a moment, but let's have a listen to what Simon Goodwin said mid-season, which is an interesting reflect now, and then Jake Lever's comments today.
He's now at a club that really values what he brings to his team, and we're certainly going to embrace that. He's coming into a club that really values what he brings to the team, and he wants to put that on show. As I said, he's now at a club that does value that.
In the end, it's a business world. We understand that, and obviously Brodie isn't in the side at the minute. He hasn't sooked once. He comes to training, he wants to get better, he wants to get back in the side, and selection's up this week, and there's nothing off the table.
And just a wild one, the money's going to be a weird part of this transaction because there's 3 clubs potentially involved in the money. Melbourne, it's probably too late in their cycle for them to replace that money next year. It's not like they're going to go and find another $800,000 or $700,000 player at short notice to replace it. What if they said, we'll deal him and we'll pay next year? We'll take all of it, much of it as we can, give us the money, but then as a result of that, up your offer. So they can really trade hard if they take the lion's share. I mean, I think Melbourne's position will be, well, he's our player for 4 years, but the only deal we're prepared to do is if we're paying the bulk And as a result of that, we're creating leverage for you in your salary cap, so you need to create mass value for us.
Now, I'm not sure Port Adelaide have that capital to do that because they traded away their picks for Horn Francis, so it won't be from them. But I've been told don't discount Sydney. Sydney are up to their eyeballs in Brodie Grundy.
How's Lysett feeling? He's going to ruck this weekend.
Yeah,
he's earmarked for, if not the exit door, then a demotion.
It's a good question, Hutchie, and you would think that one of Ken Hinkley's real strengths is he tells his players exactly where they sit, and Lysett would know that he's on his last legs and he may only have 2 or 3 games left in him and he'll be a backup next year. So I think he'll be okay and mature enough about it.